Hey, it's the Sicilian Prince here. Welcome to my video on how to make your very own elderberry syrup. Now, elderberry has an excellent reputation for assisting people combat things like the flu and colds. If you look it up on Wikipedia, and the link referenced in the video, you'll see reference to a double-blind study saying that it is effective in treating influenza B. You'll also see a 2004 study that states that over 93% of the people that have had the flu and participated in the study were symptom-free after 2 days. Now, I get my organic dried elderberries from Mountain Rose Herbs or Jean's Greens. Jean's Greens is on the East Coast, so if you live on the East Coast like I do, it might be quicker for you to get them if you needed them in a hurry. Alright, so let's go over the things that you will need to make your elderberry syrup. You'll need a ½ cup of dried elderberries, some honey, and some water. That's it. Alright, so let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our elderberries. We have a ½ cup of dried elderberries, and I'm going to put it into a pot. The next thing we're going to do is add water. The honey we're going to use later. Now, how much water are we going to use? It's roughly 6 to 7 parts water to 1 part of elderberries. So that would be, in our case, 3 to 3.5 cups of water. So I'm going to be adding water. I have a 2-cup measuring cup, so I'm first going to be putting in 2 cups. And I'm refilling that water now, and I'm going to put in an additional cup and a half. Next thing I'm going to do is remove the honey, so if the stove surface gets hot, the plastic doesn't melt. And I'm going to turn the heat up to high, just to get it to come to a nice rolling boil. After it comes to a rolling boil, I will lower the heat. Alright, at this point, it's been going for a little while and starting to come to a nice rolling boil. I'm going to stir the elderberries with a spoon to make sure none of them are sticking to the bottom of the pot. Yep. Next, I'm going to put a cover on the pot, and I'm going to lower the heat. Now, it's very, very important you lower the heat at this point. You might be wondering, what happens if you forget to lower the heat? Well, what will happen is the elderberry will overboil, and it will bubble out over the pot, go all over your stove, and make a huge elderberry mess all over the place. Don't ask me how I know this, but you don't want to find that out the hard way. Alright, so now we're going to need to set our timer for 30 minutes to allow it to simmer. And we're just going to keep an eye on it in the very beginning so that it doesn't overboil. We'll set our timer for 30 minutes. And now 30 minutes later, I'm going to shut off the heat and remove it from the heat source so that it cools off. At this point, I'll remove the cover. If need be, I'll give it a nice little stir. I don't think I need to do that here. I'm just going to take the cover off and allow it to cool for a little while. And now might be a good opportunity for me to speak about the other things I'm going to be using to make my elderberry syrup. I'm using a quart glass canning jar here. If you don't have a canning jar, you can use any jar you like. I tend to prefer to use glass, and these canning jars work out really well. The thing about a canning jar that's made out of glass, though, is that if the liquid is hot and the glass is cold, when I pour the liquid into the glass, I run the risk of cracking the glass. That's happened to me a few times, and it's not a good thing to waste our elderberry syrup. So be careful and let the elderberry syrup cool off a little bit, and you might want to actually heat up your glass jar with some hot water. The other thing I have here is a plastic lid for my glass jar. It's a lot more handy than the two-piece lids that come with a lot of these glass jars, but you can use the two-piece lid. And in addition to that, I have a funnel. And the funnel makes it a lot easier for me to get my elderberry syrup into the glass jar. Another thing I have here is this jelly bag. Now this jelly bag does get stained when using dark berries like elderberries, but that's fine. It works perfectly fine. I usually turn it inside out so that the seam is out, just like I'm showing you here. And I could place this into my funnel. It's designed to work with the funnel, and you could get this at canning supply places, Ace Hardware, things like that. And I just basically put my funnel in a jar. When I put the elderberries in, the liquid comes out. The berries stay in the top, and I'm able to squeeze them and get every last drop of juice out of them. Alright, so you might be asking yourself, do I really need to get all of this equipment? Do I need to have a canning jar and a funnel and all of that? No, you don't. You could just use any jar you want. You could use a spaghetti strainer and some cheesecloth instead of having to have the jelly bag. I'm not saying you need all this stuff, but you know, it does make it much easier to have the tools or the funnel to fit in the jar, so you don't make as much of a mess. But again, I do have to say, please use caution when putting hot liquids into glass to make sure that the glass is a little bit warmed up, and by filling it with hot water you can alleviate the glass shattering when putting a hot liquid into it. Alright, by now it should be sufficiently cooled. And what we're going to do... Alright, it's about 40 minutes later now. The elderberry juice is cooled off a bit. It's a lot easier to handle. I put a plate underneath my jar so I don't make a big mess spilling anything. And I'm going to start pouring my juice into the jar. Alright. A spoon can be very helpful in guiding the elderberries into the funnel net bag and not having them go all over the place. Take your time and get all your berries into your funnel. Hey, you know, some folks used to say in the old days, go find yourself an elderberry tree and then build your house next to it. That's because elderberry does have an excellent reputation of being so helpful for things like colds and flus, and the elderberry flowers can also be used for lowering fevers and things of that nature, according to legend, of course. Alright, so I got all my berries in the net bag. Now that all my berries are in the net bag, I'm going to take the net bag out carefully, and I'm going to get it positioned so that I could easily squeeze the net bag and not have juice go all over the place. Now your hands will turn purplish blue in this squeezing process. I'd like to say no berries were harmed in this, but you know, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. So I'm going to squeeze these berries and try to get every last drop of juice out of them. Yeah. And now I should take a moment to say, before you take this herb or any herb, you should treat it like a medication, in that you do some research on your own, look at any possible side effects or contraindications, the same way you would with any medicine that you would take, and make a decision for yourself whether or not you're going to take it. And we have pressed all of the juice out of our elderberries. There's elderberry pulp in the bag, and I would recommend that if you have a compost pile, you can compost the elderberry pulp. Now, normally after this process, my quart jar would be half full with elderberry juice. I happen to have a little bit more than that here, but that's okay. This is where the honey comes in. Now, typically I would fill my quart jar completely to the top, the remaining volume in honey. I recommend using honey in this application instead of sugar. The honey on its own has excellent medicinal effects, and it will enhance the effect of the elderberry in this formula. This elderberry syrup is actually very delicious. You can take it not only at the first sign of starting to feel like you're getting a cold or a flu, but you can also take it preventatively during flu season or any time you want. I've even heard some folks use it as a syrup to put on their pancakes. Again, I'm going to fill the complete volume of the jar. I'm going to put a plastic lid on, or any lid you happen to have, and I'm going to make sure it's on nice and tight, and shake, and shake, and shake, and shake. Now, if you happen to refrigerate the juice and then put the honey in, it would be a lot harder to get it to dissolve. And there you have it, 1 full quart of elderberry syrup. You see how easy that was? Anybody can really do that. Just make sure your lid is nice and tight. Now, honey will help preserve the elderberry syrup, and it could last in your refrigerator probably about a month. Consider this though, you have a quart here you made with a half cup of elderberries. Very economical when you consider that if you were to go to, say, Vitamin Shop and buy a bottle of Sambucus, an 8-ounce bottle is roughly about $15. You've maybe spent about $5 total and made a quart of elderberry syrup. And you're guaranteed that, you've used organic elderberries in the process. Make sure you wipe off the jar, because the elderberry syrup, like all syrups, is very sticky. And you don't want to put it in your refrigerator and end up having a sticky ring at the bottom of your elderberry jar as it sits in your refrigerator. Alright, and there you have it, elderberry syrup. So easy to make, so delicious, kids love it, I love it, everybody loves it, it's good for you. Alright, in the future I'll be showing you how to make elderberry wine, but until then, we have elderberry syrup, excellent for you. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my channel if you like what you see, or check out my website, www.cookingitalianrecipes.com, for great Italian recipes and more things like this. Thank you.